Anne, thank you so much for meeting with me today in your beautiful store, b.Inspired. I'm so excited to talk to you about your business and what brought you to your success here. So take me back to young Anne. Where did you grow up and what did you want to be when you grew up?
So, first of all, thank you, Maggie, for coming to the store and spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it. Anne, and many in the community know me as Ani because that was my nickname for many years.
I read that.
It still is. When I moved away, I used Anne, which was silly because I lived this double life. I'm Anne on the West Coast and Ani on the East Coast. But anyway, so I grew up in this village of Scotia. I went to elementary school, high school here, and I started my early life here. I went to college and came back and married and started my life
Where
here.
did you go to school?
So I went to SUNY Plattsburgh and had a good old time for myself. And
SUNY Oswego graduate.
and tried to figure out who I really wanted to be. I kind of stumbled around a little bit, and I ended up coming out with a degree in public health. And my mom was a nurse, and my dad is an attorney who worked for the state health department for many years. So, you know, that kind of wove through my thinking. My dad wanted me to be an attorney like him, and I just really fought that. I guess I would have made a good attorney, but just wasn't my life path.
So when I read your website bio, I read about the Ani, and I also read that. So you worked in the public health and healthcare system, healthcare system transformation.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
So I began my career here at the New York State Health Department, and I was one of the handful of members who started the AIDS Institute. And so in my early days, I was very focused on HIV, infectious disease, and I would never trade that experience for anything because it was in the early days of the epidemic where we didn't even call it HIV. And I lost so many dear friends. But it really served as a foundation for me to continue my career and my focus on helping people and giving back. My husband at that time was offered a position in Seattle. And I think I watched one too many Lifetime movie with the ferry leaving the dock. And I was like, yeah, I want to go. And I had never lived anywhere else but here. So we took the opportunity. My children were very small.
What year was this?
1996, long time ago. And we bought this little sweet idyllic house that was an English cottage that looked over the Puget Sound. And I loved that home, that life. My children grew up in a wonderful place. And so Seattle is very, very dear to me. It also afforded me the opportunity to resurrect my career in public health. As the kids got older and went off to college, I went back to infectious disease, and I was the director of viral hepatitis for that state. So working on hepatitis C, the opioid epidemic. So that opportunity afforded me opportunity to travel, to work with other state health departments. And so it was a real launching pad for me at that point.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I never knew that. I would have never known that about you.
Yeah.
Like you must have seen some crazy stuff.
Yeah, and grateful again to be part of something where you feel like you're making a difference and giving back. And so the world of healthcare obviously has been changing and changing rapidly. And healthcare transformation and the move to value-based care is really what I became involved with, and thus served as a consultant eventually for biopharmaceutical and ended up back here. So it's been a little bit of a journey.
So you just recently moved back to Scotia. Was it last year, 2018?
2016 going to 2017.
Okay, so you moved back to the area from New York, actually, right? So you, from Seattle, moved to New York City. And what made you decide to settle down and I guess plant your roots again back at home?
You know, life changes at different junctures in our life. And I was offered this position while I was in Seattle.
In New York.
Yes.
New York City.
So the entity offered me a package where they moved me, they bought my house, and I just kind of felt it was time to come back. It was a sign. So I did. I accepted the job. I moved. I worked in the New York City market, and I actually lived in Greenwich, Connecticut. And during that time, the job was very stressful. They hired me to help them navigate the public health world so that they could launch a viral hepatitis drug. And their drug failed miserably in the market. So I was kind of floundering with what I was going to do for this company. And I felt the stress just piling. And eventually I wasn't feeling well. And I actually had a spinal tumor that I didn't know I had, and had some major surgery and ended up coming back up here to recuperate.
Okay.
So all is well. The tumor was benign, and I spent some time taking care of me and realized that I was meant to really come back here. So I said goodbye to corporate America that was causing me that stress, and I needed to live a life of purpose. I feel like I wanted to give back to the community that gave to me. And I would drive by these empty storefronts and say, oh my gosh, there's so much potential. And so through recuperating and walking, I found the house that I bought and spent a year renovating. I spied my little corner here and spent significant time trying to renovate this to open. And so my journey brought me back home.
Talk to me about what your surgeon said to you when you came in for your last visit.
So
I think that's so important in like that pivot.
You know, it was many, many months of physical therapy and visiting Yale, and I'll forever be grateful to Yale, and actually living in Connecticut because I must have been there for a reason.
Right.
I was close to the surgeon and close to where I needed to be at a time in my life that was scary. But at the last visit, he looked at me and he said, "You look well, you look happy, and now you go live a life of purpose. You move forward and go live your life." And those words resonated in a way. I think I had been feeling that, but somebody said it to me.
Yeah.
And so it was my permission, I think, to say, okay, I've done the career thing. I've done well. I'm proud of myself. I've given, but now I want to give in a different way. So I wanted to honor the creative side that's always been within me. I kind of honored the academic, the heady side, but now it's time to do something different.
Right. I love that story. Yeah, I think it's part of your journey.
It is part of the journey, and it's part of b.Inspired.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me about b.Inspired. How did this become the store and like, I'm sure you did your research and you had to have vendors, and like working from public health to having a brick and mortar store is probably not something that happens overnight.
No, I mean, it did and it didn't, to be honest with you. I always had this side of me. I always loved interior design. I always loved home decor. I always loved floral. And I always incorporated that in my life. But it was always on the side, or a hobby, or for a friend who needed help. And when I came back and renovated my third house, which was here, I stopped one day and I said, this is what you really love to do. You love to source product. You like to create a beautiful environment. You like to help other people see that they can do that. And so that's kind of how the store came to be. So I left, as I said, and I worked on a business plan, and I studied what was going on here, and there are 28,000 vehicles that drive by this corner every day. And I'm like, well, they've been driving by an empty space for a long time, so it's time for them to see something. And I'm one of 6 new businesses that have opened up on the Ave. My friends across the street at Story Coffee. I have North Point Gallery next door. There's Yesterday's Antiques, a new barbecue place, a Paint With Me, and a new gal who took over Village Florist. So, we are in earnest trying to support what's been here forever, but really bring a different flavor to this walkable, shoppable village. And I think, if that could be my tagline, I'm a cheerleader for that. I'm a big cheerleader for trying to bring this back to what it once was. it over the years became a service corridor. Like you could go to the bank, you could get your hair done, buy insurance, and get a tattoo. But, you weren't doing much else.
Besides seeing a movie, I mean, the cinema has been such a
yes, and so
staple.
I never want to forget how wonderful that is and what a treasure that is really in this village. So, yeah.
Yeah. So can you talk about like sourcing some of your items? I mean, we don't have to get into like all the logistics of it, but like walk me through like what you do, I guess maybe seasonally, like when you look for product and how it lands on your shelf.
So I think it's a mix of things for the store. I certainly have gone to Atlanta to the big wholesale market. I've gone to New York. I've gone to Dallas. So I've been to them. And the same vendors.
And these are trade shows?
They
or
are
these? Okay.
They are. So I prefer Atlanta because it is definitely the mix of home decor, garden, apparel. There are 3 buildings, 20 stories each, full of floor after floor of really wonderful stuff. So you create your roadmap and you start to cultivate relationships with vendors, and some you maintain and others you don't. And then around that, I work with local makers. So most people know I work with William, a sophomore student at Scotia who makes the most unbelievable candles. And I feel like something like that allows me to mentor, collaborate, and give back to somebody who's just starting on his journey. So I've worked with a variety of other makers from time to time, and I will continue to do that. I say 90% of the store is new. I do mix in a bit of vintage. I have a thing for vintage glassware.
Scarves.
Vintage scarves, blankets. And mid-century. So
and you sell jewelry too.
I do, and the jewelry I try to bring in artisan jewelry, so that has its own flavor. At holiday time, I bring in a lot more. Holiday time, the store looks a little different because there are more gift items in here. But there's always home, there's always garden, and there's always lifestyle. So there's a little bit of everything in the store.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
So I'm sure that there have been people who mean well that say like, why are you in Scotia? Like you could be in Saratoga or Hudson or someplace more like, trendy or whatever. Like, so I guess you pretty much answered this question, but like, why Scotia?
Well, my house is about 5 minutes from here.
True. Okay, that's...
And not only that, but
no.
I could ride my bike or walk here most days. But it's, again, giving back to the community that gave to me. Certainly Saratoga is lovely. The rent is horrible for someone new like me. And I think that having a business that shines only a couple months of a year is not kind of what I wanted either. I know folks up there make most of their money, through track season, and then it wanes a little bit. I don't know if that wasn't for me.
Right.
A lot of people said you should be in Boston Spa, but I said Boston Spa has their folks. Yeah. And Schenectady certainly has their folks. So
you are really the only store like this in Scotia.
In Scotia, and to be honest with you, my store is a little different than some of the other stores. And that's what I love about all of us. We all kind of live in a bit of a different lane. And it allows us to collaborate and support each other versus that competition that I think is so unhealthy. So b.Inspired lives in an anthropology terrain type lane, if you will. If I could be a terrain, I would. So terrain honors home and garden, and I think I bring that West Coast kind of feel because after living there for 20 years, how can you not?
Right.
So I think that I see things through a different lens, and that makes me a different type of store.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks.
So let's say the person listening is completely intimidated about decorating their home. They have no idea where to begin. What is one tip that you can give this person who wants to improve their space?
A lot of people come in and they want to do everything all at once. And I think that is overwhelming for anybody, right? So I often ask them to prioritize. What do you want to do the most, or what do you feel is the most pressing need? And then from there, I start to peel the layers back with them, and we talk about what's really bothering them, whether it's color or they need a new kitchen or whatever. So part of b.Inspired, the business model, I do offer an at-home service and have been doing that since last spring. So a lot of the time I will go out and meet with a person who is in that zone of feeling intimidated and lost. And sometimes just editing a room with them, or rearranging some furniture, or giving them a design board with maybe just a few items to add, that totally takes that fear of I can't do this away. And then they're really often surprised at just a few changes make such a big difference.
So would you suggest that someone like starts in one room
Yep.
instead of like trying to like redo their whole space, or maybe one part of their room?
Yep.
Like maybe like changing lampshades or changing like what is like a practical thing that
I think that it's room by room versus,
Okay.
a part of a room usually. And oftentimes it's you start with the color of the room, and a lot of the times that serves as a very nice backdrop to whatever you're going to do. And so from there, then we look at what are they using as furniture? Do they like that furniture? Should they reposition that furniture? Can they take something from somewhere else and repurpose it? So I'm not the type of person that's going to go in and clean out the room and tell them they have to start from square one. I think it's really trying to figure out a way to repurpose and to create their space that tells their story. I will often tell people to use Pinterest and get ideas and pin them, because after a while you'll start pinning the same look over and over again, and then that's the starting point, if you will. That's your ground zero to move forward with.
I've actually heard that before.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, like you just tend to like go and like do your Pinterest search, and then like when you start looking at your inspirations, you're like, wow, I like the same style, shade, or color, or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll raise my hand and say I did that with my remodel. I wanted black windows, and I pinned a million black windows, and I'm like, okay, that really affirms that that's where I'm going with my windows, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. What is your favorite and least favorite part of owning a brick and mortar store?
I love in the morning when I come and I put the key in the door and I feel happy. I feel a sense of joy. I'm not with my cup of coffee, with my earbuds, and on the first conference call of the morning, sometimes in my pajamas. So I put the key in the door to a store that gives me a sense of joy and happiness. I love that I'm able to help people. I love that I'm part of a community. So those are the things I love. I think the business side of it is challenging, navigating, understanding. There's some great resources here that I've discovered, the Small Business Development Corp out of UAlbany and some other entities. But figuring that out and navigating that, there's nobody that's going to scoop you up and say, okay, this is the way to go. And so I've had to kind of chart that course a little bit. So that's been my least favorite, I think.
Okay. As we are approaching the holiday season, and you're getting ready to stage some of the holiday product and gifts, what are you looking forward to the most this season for what you have to offer? Like, what are you excited about?
I'm excited to transform the store, honestly. I am literally, I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like, what date is it today? Because I know by the first week in November, it needs to be Winter Wonderland in here. So part of that excitement is my excitement because I'm going to change the store into something magical. I handpick everything that goes in the store. So I'm excited to showcase what I've selected, whether it's beautiful garland or beautiful candles or beautiful ornaments.
The ornaments are beautiful.
Thank you. This year, I really...
Like they rival Pottery Barn.
I tried this year to honor the home decor side. So certainly you can go lots of places to get gifts. And I do have gift items here, but I really wanted you to be able to come in and add to your home decor for the holiday season. So is it a beautiful velvet runner? Is it beautiful pillars, candles?
Placemats.
Yes, table runners. I said that already. I also have beautiful textiles, pillows, all that kind of stuff. So, I don't think there's one particular item. I think the whole thing creates a space that makes me very happy.
Yeah.
Now, I opened the store last year, the first week of November, and I just dove into the holidays and didn't even have a sense. And it was crazy busy. And so this year I'm a little bit deer in headlights.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, is it going to be like that, or is it going to be more? I think the thing that also causes me some stress, but in a good way, is that Black Friday, Shop Small Saturday, and then Holiday on the Ave are back to back to back. So I'm like, whoa, I'm just not going to sleep for 3 days.
You're going to have to sleep here.
Yeah.
No, and I just have to say, like, and just as a plug for your store, like, if someone is holiday shopping this year, like, come to B.Inspired, because, like, honestly, the quality and the way you price things is very fair. And as a former employee of a big box, I'll just say I used to work at Pottery Barn, and, like, I would just call people to shop here if they're going to look for something unique, or they're going to find a gift for someone, because it really is, like, it's not just like something you can find anywhere.
Yeah, thank you. I really try to have the store feel that way. The other thing is you have to know your market. So I'm not sitting in Hudson or Rhinebeck or Manhattan. And while it would be nice to put that price tag on things, I would be out of business in a week. So I think understanding how to price, and I think understanding...
Yeah, you're really smart about that.
Well, I want to be here for a while, right? I don't want to be out of business, and I don't want people to walk in and say, oh, it's a really nice store, but I can't afford anything. I want people to be able to come in and enjoy the store, but also be able to leave with something. And, when they leave, there was a store in Seattle that I loved, and I would just wander in, and whether I bought a candle or something small or a gift, the way that they packaged it, the bag, the tissue paper, the ribbon, I left and I always felt like I got a treat. And so that was so important for me with the store, that people leave with a bag, the tissue paper, the ribbon.
The bow.
Yeah, it's just, they have to. And some people say, oh, I don't need all that. And I'm like, well, you have to leave the store that way.
Yeah.
I understand about conserving paper and all that, and I don't do it, unnecessarily, but just leaving feeling like you got something. And last year somebody said, under my Christmas tree, there were more white bags with green tissue paper than anything else. And so I kind of...
Yeah, well, last year what I did was I took a business card for every gift I purchased. And I, some of the boxes, I just, I repurposed, a gift box, and then I put your business card on top of it, so it looked like they were opening something from your store, or, in the card or whatever. Because it is, everything about it is just very, very thoughtful. So the concept of your neighborhood store is to inspire and motivate and inviting into a comfortable space. What inspires you?
I think a lot of things inspire me. I think stores that I loved and miss in Seattle. Seattle was full of lots of little neighborhoods that you could walk to and get your coffee and grab a bouquet of flowers and go to your little market and come in a store like this. So I think living that life for so long really inspired me. I think loving a store like Anthropologie Terrain inspires me to want to be something like that. Individuals who have a gift and share this gift inspire me. And I think the inspiration to be part and parcel of something bigger than myself. So certainly I want the store to do well and succeed, but I also want it to be part of what's happening in this village. And so that inspires me.
Yeah, and like we were talking earlier just before we started recording about how even the name B.Inspired is like part of you,
It
right?
is. It is. So my married name is Brenner. So the B is the initial for that. And then inspired just, I feel like this whole thing just inspires me, and what I do inspires me and hopefully others. And so it just seemed like a natural name.
Yeah. So what's next for B.Inspired? I know you've got a couple things coming down the pipeline, like new space, maybe online. I know you mentioned decorating services. What's next?
So the at-home design services did launch last March, and I've been quite busy with that. That has to pause now for the holidays
Right. Of
because
course.
I'm just too busy, and then that can resume in the new year. I think the biggest thing for me is that I've been working with Ray Gillen at Metroplex, and I've been working with the Kohler family, the owners of these buildings, to come up with a plan to move to the corner to the empty gas
Right next door.
right next door to the corner gas station that has been there for many years and really hasn't been much of a corner.
And this is on the corner of Route 50 and Mohawk Ave.
Yeah, it's a busy corner. It's a highly visible corner. And I really yearn to make that space attractive and a gateway to not only the Village of Scotia, but to Glenville. And so
And what a call to action, like when you enter into Scotia,
Yeah.
like be inspired. You're here in Scotia. I love that.
And that space is much bigger, so it will allow me to bring in more product. I can't bring in a lot of vintage rugs, which I'd love to. I can't bring in a lot of the big garden pots and more of the garden stuff like I'd like to. So that bigger space will afford me the opportunity to expand into that, but also continue to stage product in a way for people can see how to use it.
Right.
I certainly have to stack on shelves and have things look uniform and neat, but that doesn't necessarily help an individual see how they can use it in a variety of settings. And so I love to, set tables and have pieces of furniture to use. And so I hope in the new year, as we move forward with that corner and that space, that's what will happen.
Yeah. Is there going to be an online element eventually?
So that space does have a very large storeroom, which I do not have here. And the goal is to launch an online store. But I need the storage space to have the product.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but when you order something online and it has to go back, and the bag is sitting there, I'm like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I don't have the tape. So for me to have that online store, I have to have that whole packing station set up, ready to go, so that is just efficient and works versus, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. It's because it can't be like that with an online store.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So kind of coming to a close, this is the question I ask everybody. What do you typically do for lunch?
So it's so funny. I thought about that a little bit. I pack my lunch. I, throw some things in a bag. I'm standing, eating, working. I run across the street and visit my friends at Storied. I'll get something, a treat there. But I don't go to lunch because I'm here. I'm here. And, I have to say, going to lunch and out to lunch is one of my favorite things.
Is it?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I've always loved it since a kid. But yeah, working in this type of environment is so different and taxing in a different way than working in an office or from home like I did before. You get up, you go to an office, you have a morning break, you go for a walk with colleagues, you go to lunch. There is none of that here. You're here, basically, so lunch is just part and parcel of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online and in social media?
So b.Inspired is on Instagram at b.Inspired Lifestyle, and Facebook the same. And then
it's B with no E, right?
just B.
Yeah.
b.Inspired. Yeah. And there you can't use the dot either
Okay.
with the. So b.Inspired Lifestyle on Instagram, b.Inspired Lifestyle on Facebook, and then the same thing for the website. And the website will grow once the online store launches and all of that. But right now, it pretty much just talks about the store and some of the things you can find in here. it's hard for me to keep that website so current because things
Yeah, things
change
change.
all the time. And I tell people that, like when they're in, I'm like, be sure to come back because I know next week I have 15 boxes of cool stuff coming next week, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to meet with me before you open. I know you probably want to get your doors open. So thank you so much. And good luck the rest of this year.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
coming on to the holiday season. It's
I'm
going to be
looking
great.
I'm looking forward to it, and I can't say thank you enough to you for taking the time to come visit me and talk about my journey and be inspired.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Anne Brenner, owner and founder of b.Inspired. Visit our show notes at workinglunchpod.com for links, photos of her store, and the video of our interview. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook. We're at Working Lunch Pod. And if there's someone who you would like to be featured as a guest, email us at workinglunchpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to Working Lunch. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. And remember, your biggest strength is who you are.